I've just disembarked a cruise on one of the most exciting and expensive cruise ships in the world, where I saw and did things that I didn't know were possible at sea. The ship that I was sailing on was the Celebrity Edge, built in 2018, and she is home to the world's first floating restaurant platform that rises 12 decks up the side of the cruise ship. That isn't even the most exciting thing about this ship. It blew my mind. For years I've cruised with the budget and the mainstream cruise lines, but a cruise on Celebrity Edge has always been just out of reach as much as I wanted to do it. When I saw that Celebrity had an offer on that meant that flights would only be £1, I decided that this would be a good time to give it a go. I've wanted to take my mum on a cruise for a while, and this seemed like the perfect mother and daughter adventure, or so I hoped. Before this cruise, I didn't know what to expect from Celebrity or from the ship. I'd heard great things about the food and the entertainment, but I'm pretty sure that this is the most expensive cruise that I've ever paid for. I didn't know how realistically it could be worth the price that I paid, and like any cruise, alongside the great reviews were also plenty of bad reviews, with some describing Edge as disappointing and a major fail. We embarked the ship in Barcelona and set sail for a 7-night cruise. My cruise actually started off in a more stressful way than I would have liked when we were directed into the airport's car park to pick up our transfer bus. Our cruise included transfers. We couldn't see the bus anywhere, and we couldn't get back into the airport to ask where we were meant to be because everything was a one-way system. We were just faced everywhere we went with escalators that were going the wrong way, and I really didn't want to have to run the wrong way up an escalator. It was hot, and after about 15 minutes of frantically running from bus to bus, I was thinking that we would probably just have to get a taxi and hoped that our bags would make it to the ship. All of a sudden though, we saw our bags on a trolley across the car park, and I was so happy to see them. We followed the bags to the bus and we were able to ask the person there where we were meant to be. It was not the straightforward start that I'd hoped for, but I was pretty sure that the cruise would be worth it. I would just be arriving a little bit more flustered than I'd planned. The stressful transfer situation was more than made up for when we managed to check in for our cruise in about 20 seconds. Pre-cruise, I'd already taken our security photos, I'd filled out our health declaration forms, and I'd added our credit card to the account. So when we arrived at the port, all we had to do was show this QR code and they checked it against our passports. I've embarked on cruises in the past where this has taken 2 or 3 hours, so checking in 20 seconds was pretty incredible. I hope that this would be a sign of things to come. As soon as we stepped on board, we were directed towards our muster station, which happened to be in the theatre. It is a legal requirement that on all cruises, every guest has to complete a safety drill, and this was once again made very, very easy because we'd already watched the safety videos on the app. All we had to do was check in at the place where we would muster in case of an emergency. The theatre was the first place that I'd seen on board, and it looked very impressive. The stage comes out into the main room and the theatre can seat 900 people. It looked as though all the seats had a good view, and I'd heard lots of good things about Celebrity's entertainment. I knew that there would be a show in here every single night and that Celebrity allowed the filming of their shows, so I'm happy to report that I have lots of footage to share with you later in this video, including this is just incredible. It was a beautiful day in Barcelona, so we headed up the stairs to the top deck of the ship. Here I got my first glimpse of the floating platform on the side that's called the Magic Carpet, and I wandered through this area, which makes me think of shark's teeth or being inside of a whale. I knew that Celebrity had spent $1 billion on this ship, and the top deck certainly did feel like that. There was a big pool in the middle and another inside pool in an area that's called the solarium. This was an adults only area, but I didn't expect that we would be seeing too many kids on this cruise. Celebrity aren't really marketed towards families, they're more of a grown-up, luxurious kind of cruise, and that suited me really well. At this point, I didn't know which nationalities would be on board, but I was surprised to find out as the cruise went on. I went to the toilet, and I think you can tell a lot about a cruise line or really any building by the effort that they put into their public toilets. Celebrity Edge's toilets were beautiful, and I do mean the room, not the actual toilets. They had these little cloths to dry your hands on, and I thought if the rest of the ship is as good as this, I will be very, very happy. It's an odd theory, I know, but it's never let me down before. If the toilets are gross, probably the rest of the ship will be, and if they're beautiful and they smell lovely like these, the ship probably will too. There were real plants everywhere in the solarium, and it had that lovely humid inside pool smell. Exploring the top deck a little further, we found what is called the rooftop garden. It isn't uncommon for cruise ships to have some real plants on board, but Celebrity have taken this to a whole new level. I felt as though I would be spending a lot of time here during the cruise, and I was absolutely right. I didn't expect to meet a lizard here, but I did. He must have been very confused that he somehow crawled onto the ship in one country and the next day he woke up and he was somewhere else. I googled it when I got home, and apparently this red thing means that he's trying to fight me. Maybe he did not want to be on YouTube, he didn't want to be a YouTube superstar, but I'm sorry, Mr. Lizard, it is too late. You're on YouTube now. By this time we were getting pretty hungry, and I'd seen a grill down by the pool. All of the food here is included, and I had a veggie burger with lots of pickles. We would usually call these gherkins in the UK, but I think a gherkin is a type of pickle. I don't know. Either way, I like gherkins and I like pickles. I love putting gherkins on burgers just as much as I love dipping my pizza in ketchup, and yes, you should all do that. To the side of the grill, which is called the Mars Grill, there are a couple of drinks machines and an ice cream machine. I made myself a drink by watering down the juice to make something that tasted like the drink squash that we have in the UK. On most cruises, you'll find that water and tea and coffee are free all the time in the buffet, but juices are often only available at breakfast. I was very happy to see them there for lunch as I hadn't bought a drinks package, so I would be looking for all the free drinks that I could on this cruise. This may have been the most expensive cruise that I've ever booked, but I definitely wasn't going to go around spending more than I felt like I needed to. Free is definitely my favourite price. Our cabins were ready to use from 2 p.m. and I was so excited to get in and to have a look around. Usually I cruise in inside cabins, but I had booked myself the controversial infinite veranda. It's like an ocean view cabin, but with a really big window that opens instead of a balcony that is outside the cruise ship. My first impressions of the cabin were great. It felt very spacious, it felt very modern, and I was looking forward to spending my week here. I wasn't sure that I would like the infinite veranda concept more than a standard balcony, but only time would tell. I will be bringing you a full video just about this cabin, so make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss it. One of my favourite things about embarkation day is that feeling when you just run around the cruise ship and you try and see as many things as possible. It's always such a relief to actually be there and to know that you're on the right day and you're on the right ship and your cruise is gonna start. I'd heard that there was a space on Celebrity Edge called Eden that was split over 3 decks, and I knew that I had to find it. Looking at one of the handy maps that were all over the cruise ship, I found Eden at the back of deck 5. To get there, I had to walk through this really strange room where it was dark and there were mirrors and trees everywhere. In this room, there was relaxing music playing, and it felt like being transported into Eden. It felt like I was the TARDIS and I was sliding through that time hole thing in Doctor Who. I've been cruising for years, but walking into Eden was unlike anything I've ever experienced on any cruise ship before. The area is split over 3 decks with a bar in the middle and a restaurant on the lower level. Everywhere there were plants and there were lights hanging down. The whole place had this relaxing background music playing like I was inside an aquarium, and I was looking forward to seeing what kind of entertainment would be in here. I think the Celebrity might have changed the entertainment that happens in this venue recently, because I was definitely surprised by how the space was used, even though I had done my research. The restaurant in Eden is what is called a specialty restaurant, meaning that it costs extra, but there are plenty of restaurants on board where the food is included. It definitely isn't a requirement that you spend anything extra on food on a cruise, but if you do want something special, something extra, there are options for that. Celebrity Edge has 4 main dining rooms, and they offer an early dining time, a late dining time, and what is called anytime dining. I had the anytime dining, which meant that each day I could just book the restaurants on my phone, I could pick which restaurant, and I could pick which time every evening. Every restaurant felt nice and intimate and quite small, but they do all hold at least 300 people. I noticed in the app that the main dining rooms opened at 5:30, which is perfect for me because I'm definitely an early diner. We decided to eat in the Normandy restaurant first, and the restaurant felt very elegant, the food was great, and the service was fantastic, helped perhaps by the fact that we dined at 5:30, so there weren't really many other people in the restaurant. Celebrity do have a separate vegetarian menu in the main dining room, and allergens like gluten were usually marked on the menus. All the meals in the main dining room also come with unlimited bread, and each day we were given 3 different types of butters and dips. Celebrities certainly know how to do bread, and I made the most of it. By the end of this cruise, I felt as though I was mostly made of bread, but that is not a complaint. I absolutely love it. After drinking the included water at dinner, I wanted to go and get a proper drink. By a proper drink, I of course meant a soda, and it is a Coke ship. It is Coke, not Pepsi. I thought that we might as well start with a drink on the magic carpet. Our day had started at around 5 a.m, and the transfer stress and the fun of exploring a new cruise ship certainly had worn me out, so we decided to call it a night and to skip the theatre show. I knew that there was loads of entertainment later in the cruise that I wanted to see, and also I knew that we had seen a tiny part of this ship. I knew that there were so many bars and restaurants and cafes, and I hadn't even seen the main atrium at this point, but I was honestly just happy to see the insides of my eyelids as I fell asleep. I was very tired. When I woke up and opened the blinds, I was greeted with this incredible view of Cannes in France. We were tendering, which means that you don't dock at land, you use little boats to get from the ship. It's like a little free boat tour, and you get fantastic views as you sail away and also as you sail into port. It was in the buffet that we decided to get breakfast. They do have the main dining rooms open for breakfast too, and a cafe in Eden, but I'm not an early riser and I prefer to just grab some bread or a banana, or both if I'm feeling adventurous. The buffet on board Celebrity Edge is massive, and I was looking forward to coming back later in the day to explore the food options properly. I was amazed by the quality of the decor in the buffet. Quite often buffets can just look like school canteens, but you can tell that they spent a lot of time designing each space. At the back of the buffet was an area that usually serves pizza, and there was seating all the way around and out the back. It was a beautiful day in Cannes, and we visited the beach, had a wander through the town, and did a little bit of yacht shopping. I don't know what it was about this itinerary, but we saw so many yachts. Just when I thought I had finally got on a fancy cruise ship, the yachts come in and they one-up me. Boarding the Celebrity Edge again did feel very nice though. We were given little glasses of cold water and icy cold towels, which definitely is a premium cruise line thing. Some of the other budget cruise lines might try and sell you a bottle of water, but this was lovely. We also had to tender the next day in Portofino in Italy, which is one of the prettiest places that I've ever been to. It was really busy, but it was definitely worth a visit. I even found this floating restaurant platform, which definitely would make me feel seasick. I do not think I would last very long eating on here. On the way back from Portofino, we had the pleasure of the captain of the Celebrity Edge driving us back to the ship. He was such a funny guy, and later in the cruise when I did a live stream on my YouTube channel, he accidentally guest starred by broadcasting his announcement into my cabin. It was fantastic. When asked how to become a captain, he joked that it was a
2 weeks online course,
but that it took him
15 years to become a captain. As you can guess, I'm a slow learner.
Heading back to the ship, we decided to stop and get a drink in the onboard cafe. The cafe has lots of cakes and cookies which are included in the cruise fare, and I can confirm Celebrity absolutely have the best cookies at sea. Not just because of the quality of the cookies, which is really good, but because of the access to them. Day or night, the cookies were available here. As I didn't have a drinks package, a can of Coke cost me a little over $5. The advertised price was $4, but there was a gratuity of 18% added on top, and then we sometimes did have French or Spanish tax added on top of that. I don't usually drink enough to make back the cost of an alcoholic drinks package, but they do have a soft drinks package. Before the cruise, I wondered if this might be worth it for me, but at $30 per day, I'd have to drink at least 6 sodas per day to break even. I don't doubt that I could do that, but I probably shouldn't, so we decided to just pay as we went. We went into the buffet for lunch, and I was amazed by just how much choice there was. This buffet is easily double or triple the size of the buffets that I've seen in cruise ships of a similar size. I love the ice cream station. They had cookies there all the time. There were nachos, donuts, fish and chips, all kinds of things that you wouldn't normally put together on a plate. But when you're in a buffet and the food is included, you can create some of the weirdest meals. They had the most incredible cakes and donuts, and one day they had these terrifying looking fish. I definitely avoided them, but there were probably about 70 other choices you could choose from. The buffet was open from 6 AM till 1 AM, and it only closed briefly in that time. I think there was an hour between breakfast and lunch where it was closed, but breakfast went on until 11 AM, which was fantastic. It wasn't normally too busy in the buffet, and the only day that it was a sea day that we had later in the cruise, because there weren't any main dining rooms open for lunch, so everybody was either in the buffet or the poolside grill. There is room service that's available at a cost, and there were plenty of specialty restaurants that you could pay extra for, but I was a little disappointed that none of the main dining rooms were open for lunch. Considering there's 4 of them, I would have thought they'd open 1 or 2, at least on the sea days, but they never did. Even on the busy sea day though, the buffet wasn't unbearable. It was just as busy as you would find most days on a different cruise. Heading back to our cabin and picking up the daily schedule that we were given every day, I noticed that it was chic night. This is Celebrity's version of a formal night, and they define chic as dressed to impress, glamour and sophistication in your own way. I didn't get the impression that the dress codes were particularly strict or enforced. As long as you were wearing a shirt with a collar or a decent dress, I think it's fine. In recent years, most cruise lines have moved to a more relaxed relaxed dress code. I did wear a dress, but everybody's definition of sophisticated is very, very different. On our 7-night cruise, we had one chic night and the rest were smart casual nights. This is what I wore on the chic night, and these are my smart casual outfits. There's barely any difference there. We headed to another of the main dining rooms called Cyprus, where I found the stringiest cheese in the world. All of the food on board was fantastic, and this was no exception. I've always thought of Celebrity as a cruise line for the foodies, and this cruise definitely did confirm that. On this table you will see the cutlery, and that is your Britishism of the week. I believe that in other places you often call this silverware, the knives, the forks, the spoons, but here in Britain we would call this cutlery. I was looking forward to an evening of entertainment on board the ship, seeing as how I'd missed most of it the night before. In the theatre there was a show called Kaleidoscope, which is a word that I definitely cannot spell. I was amazed to see that there were 16 singers and dancers during the show, and every single one of them was incredible. I never saw a foot out of place, I never heard a note out of tune. It was amazing. Everyone has different things that they like in theatre shows, and for me, I like colours and costumes, I like sets that change, and I like technology. Every show that we saw on board Celebrity Edge had this and so much more. Most of the shows didn't really have a story, they were collections of songs, but they felt much more modern than the classic cruise ship entertainment that I'm used to. They used songs that I personally like, and we saw 3 shows from the theatre team during the cruise. There were incredible acrobatic shows, and later in the cruise we saw a theatre team show that was backed by a 7-person band. That is just incredible, and they didn't even have sheet music half the time, which blows my mind. Up next was the silent disco in the atrium, and apart from walking by it occasionally, this is the first time that I really used this space. The atrium of a cruise ship is usually the heart of the ship, it's right in the middle, and lots of restaurants and other things will come off of it. Celebrity Edge's atrium was huge, they'd have live music here in the evenings, and there was a bar on the bottom level. We grabbed our silent disco headphones, and everyone can pick which station their headphones are tuned into. There's a red, blue and green station, and each one plays different songs. It's a lot of fun to see what everyone else is listening to, but it's perhaps even more fun to watch it without any of the sound. It is so awkward and funny to suddenly see 20 random people in a room burst into an ABBA song. It's a great idea for cruise ships because they don't make very much sound, and Celebrity had quite a few silent discos on our cruise. At this point, I still hadn't seen much in the way of trivia or game shows, and I hadn't seen areas like the casino, but I knew that I still had plenty of time on board to explore. I'm convinced that you could be on this ship for 7 days and still not find everything if you weren't looking. Even if you were just trying to look at all of the art, that would be a challenge. There were these ghostly people here, and this is my personal favourite picture from the stairways. This one is my mum's favourite. I did also find this that I nicknamed The Art of Having a Headache. I'm sure it has a better name than that, but to me that's what I see when I look at this. It's like me trying to work out why someone would want to eat olives. We headed back to our cabin and found a chocolate on the pillow waiting for us. If you were to go back 20 years, most cruise lines did do this, but due to cutbacks and cost savings, very few do anymore, but Celebrity still do. I was really enjoying the more luxurious cruising aspect, and I was starting to understand why a cruise like this cost more than what I'm used to. There were some real benefits like the number of crew that were always around and the space per person that I hadn't really understood the value of before this cruise. We never had to wait for anything, and we could have had multiple seats everywhere if we wanted to. I've been on some busy cruise ships over the years, and I recently cruised on a ship that had over 900 children on board, but Celebrity Edge couldn't be described as busy. There were always quiet places to be found. Our next ports that we visited were La Spezia and Ajaccio. Ajaccio. 1 second, I'm just going to Google that.
Ajaccio.
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 Ajaccio. Apparently Ajaccio is the American pronunciation and Ajaccio is the British. I hadn't been to either of these places before, and I was so happy to see that we were docked so that we could just wander straight off the cruise ship. In La Spezia, we were docked next to the MSC Seaview, which is a big cruise ship from a budget cruise line that I sailed on a couple of years ago. I loved my time on that ship, and I was loving my time on Edge, but it was very clear that these were 2 very different cruise lines. I probably could have taken the cruise on the MSC Seaview for half or maybe even a third of what I paid for Edge, but I wouldn't have had nearly as much space per person, I wouldn't have enjoyed the entertainment or the food as much, and I definitely wouldn't have got a chocolate on my pillow. Still, I don't think I'll ever give up on budget cruising. There is something so nice about being on a cruise that costs less than staying in a hotel on land. It's fabulous. Our channel mascot Captain Hudson enjoyed the sunshine, and in Ajaccio we went to Napoleon's house and I found a book with a very scary lion drawing on it. Next up on my schedule was trivia, and I decided to start with the general knowledge version. They had trivia on multiple times a day, and it usually happened in a venue that is called the Club. It's a 2-story lounge in the middle of the ship, and late at night that is when this area really comes alive. It was the perfect place to watch a game show, and they also do a few exercise classes in here. The daily schedule was fairly busy with events, but Celebrity definitely are known for being a luxurious, relaxing kind of cruise as opposed to a party line. They do have some parties of course, but not in the same way as you'd find on a cruise line like Carnival. Whenever I cruise, I spend $10 in the casino on one of these little machines. Overall, I definitely am down, but I still always give it a go. It didn't take me very long at all to lose my $10 on this game with this weird looking animal, but as I was pressing the buttons on the screen, I realized that I had $5 in the bonus credit section. This wasn't mentioned anywhere on the cruise that I'd seen, and I just found it by chance. I checked my mum's card and she had the $5 bonus too. It also didn't take me very long to lose the bonus credit, but that could have been the credit that won me big, so I'm glad I tried. Any bonus credit will be linked to your cruise card if it's there, and your password is usually something to do with your date of birth. You can ask anyone working there though if you don't know what it is. One of my favourite ways to spend time on this cruise was to sit up on the rooftop garden with my mum. Either in the afternoon we would sit in the shade, or we would sit there and we would watch the sunset. We'd get a drink from the bar at the back that is called the Sunset Bar, and I would usually catch up with my work. This is not a bad place for an office, it's pretty nice. We would watch live music in Eden, and one day I managed to get up before 9 AM to make it to the breakfast that they have there. It's all included in the cruise fare, and I had this wrap and found this very nice little outside area. On the other side of the cruise ship was the smoking area that is beautiful, and I've never used the words beautiful to describe a smoking area before. Usually the people that smoke are left in the worst locations, but this was really, really lovely. And there was another smoking area up by the Sunset Bar. As well as the theatre team shows, they also had guest acts performing, and we saw a great show called Women of Rock and a couple of shows by a fantastic trumpetist. Wait, what is the word for trumpetist? Trumpeter, that sounds better. The man behind the trumpet was called Ollie, and he was also a great singer. He performed songs from all genres, and the big screens and the live band really helped to take performances like this to that next level. It took them up a notch. I loved sitting here on the top level as I had a great view, and they also had bar service in here too. From up here I could get a great overview of who else was on this cruise. In terms of age, this is probably one of the most diverse cruise ships that I've been on. There were some children on board, but Celebrity aren't really aimed at kids. You won't find Peppa Pig by the pool or ropes courses or anything like that, but if you do bring kids, they won't feel out of place or uncomfortable. They have great kids clubs, and I suppose that's why I didn't really see the kids during our cruise. They were having a great time in the kids clubs, and I was having a great time not in the kids clubs. Our cruise director Tim, who was fantastic, told us that there were 400 children on board. That definitely surprised me. I would have guessed maybe 100, probably less than that. There were plenty of teenagers on board, there were people my age, all the way up to people who I assume were in their 80s, 90s or 100s, but it is not polite to ask. The majority of people on board were from the UK, the US and Spain, but I did also meet people from Australia, from Canada and from Germany. All of the entertainment and everything was done in English only, but I did often hear people speaking other languages, which personally I like. I like to cruise with a mix of nationalities. I think it makes it more fun, and it feels to me more like I'm away on holiday. If I go away on a cruise and everyone else there is exactly the same as me, I do find that a bit strange. It's as if you sort of just picked up your town and then floated it somewhere else. Your weekly piece of cruise trivia is that the Celebrity Edge was the first cruise ship to resume sailing from the US after the COVID shutdown. That was way back in June of 2021, and the capacity on the ship was limited to 40%. That sailing was after 15 months of the cruise industry being shut down completely. Let me know in the comments if you were watching my videos back then or even before the pandemic. It feels like forever ago, thankfully. I said earlier that this is the most expensive cruise that I've ever booked, and I'm pretty sure that that is right. I usually like to stick to a budget of around £100 per person per night, and I want that to include all of the gratuities, the taxes and the fees. That's around $127 per night. I have cruised on many cruise lines though that cost half of that. In total for this cruise, for me and my mum sharing an infinite veranda cabin, I paid £2,920, which is $3,715. That comes in just over £200 per person per night, and that price did include flights and transfers, but the daily gratuities weren't included. These came in at $17.50 per person per day, so that added on a couple hundred extra dollars. As much as I love budget cruising, the thing that matters to me most is, did I get what I paid for? If I paid nothing, I'm not expecting much, and if I paid more, like on this cruise, I would like to get a little bit more in return. On this cruise, I paid more than I usually would, but I definitely got that in return. One of my favorite things about this ship is the magic carpet that's used as a bar and a tender boarding platform. We had 2 tender ports during this cruise, so we had the chance to use it lots of times. To find out how this platform moves, what it's used for, and why this doesn't make the ship topple over, watch this video next.